kind of taken a break from talking about football this week to talk about some of the issues facing the country, the African American
Hmm.
community. I'm just curious how productive those conversations have been all week.
I think they've been extremely productive. Like you said, we kind of took a break from football because how could you worry about football when obviously the country's in a crisis like this. It's so much bigger than football right now, and obviously with our team predominantly being African American. I think Matty P did a great job of just giving everybody the opportunity to kind of voice their opinions, voice their frustrations, and for our white brothers to kind of really understand what the African American community, African American man truly goes through living in this country.
Kyle, Mikey?
Duron, thanks for your time.
Hmm.
Welcome to Detroit. Um, I have two questions for you. The first is
Hmm.
I'm curious what was your initial reaction when you saw the George Floyd video?
Heartbreaking. I think how could you not be? I mean, then I told myself I wasn't gonna watch the entire video, but you watch it and you just sitting there and you just see, somebody, obviously the police officers who had so much power and just, was gonna abuse his power just to show how much power he had over, that African American man, George Floyd. And, I think the thing that really hits home is like when I seen it, I seen myself. Um, then I seen my father. Then I seen my cousins. Then I seen my son. It was very unfortunate. Obviously with everything going around, and I'm trying to explain to my 8-year old, why George Floyd lost his life, and trying to explain to him, as best as I can for an 8-year old that this is not right, this is wrong, and it really brings you at that moment. It brings you to, it brought me to tears because it's just like the world should never be like this. We shouldn't treat people the way we treat them just based off the color of their skin.
My second question for you, man, is a lot of this is about educating America about the problem that it
Mm-hmm.
is, right? And I'm just curious, personal experiences with racism, if you're comfortable sharing something like that. I'm curious to hear
Oh,
what
for sure.
you've experienced. Yeah.
Oh, so it's it's crazy as it may seem, but I've been experienced, racism, and it's crazy. I'm, from Delaware. It's a, not a racist place at all. I have, grew up with white friends, just not even just white friends, all type of ethnic groups. And, I think one of my first real racial experiences was, when I was 17. In Walmart, dropping my mom off at the front door, and uh, like literally, the cop was coming the other way, and he wanted me to go by, but I couldn't go anywhere at the time because of my mom was still getting out, and my sister and I think my nephew at the time were getting out the bag. So, he kind of looked at me crazy, and I kind of gave him the same look back, and then like literally after that, he circles around, and I'm sitting there waiting for him at the front, and I mean, knocks on the door. What are you doing right here? I was like, I'm just waiting on my parents to get out. And he was like, most people would be like, all right, we'll just move away from the fire lane. Then he starts kind of like snapping, telling me to get out the car. Uh, then after I get out, like I'm like, why I gotta get out the car? Just tell him I'm about to move right now. He's like, no, you're not about to move. Get out the car. Like then all of a sudden he say like, if you don't roll this window down, I'm gonna break this effing glass. And pulls me out, gets me up. I go to get my hand in my pocket. He start yelling at me, get your effing hands out the pocket. And then we did all of this literally. I'm a 17-year-old boy. We did this for a ticket for parking in the fire lane when all he had to do was just, telling me to move. It was just the way that, he didn't like the way I looked at him. He felt like, he was in control of the situation. He had to let me know at the time, you know, he was the boss. Then I could talk about the time that I was obviously up in Massachusetts, a couple of times just getting pulled over while black. leaving the mall, got my wife in the car, my son at the time, and literally pull out the car, pull out of the mall, and literally hop on the highway. As soon as we hop on the highway, pulled over. As soon as he gets to the car, he says, license and registration, please. So, I try to apply. I give him that, and he says, well, the reason why I pulled you over is because I wasn't familiar with the license plate. And I'm like, so you pull everybody over for, not knowing the license plate? And because I had a Delaware license plate at the time. And, he didn't really give me an answer. Then he starts talking to me, obviously, about playing for the Patriots. And not to bore you guys, but the last one, was um, going to get an MRI. And I'm in Brockton. Brockton is a, predominantly, black and brown community. And same thing, I'm riding like literally 30 seconds from the MRI place and get pulled over. And the first thing the policeman asked me was, whose car is this? And you're like, I'm like, what do you see me driving it? Like, it's my car. Well, what are you doing in Brockton? Well, before you stopped me, I was literally going to go get an MRI from, the place, literally like within walking distance. And then he asked for my license, my registration, and he comes back. And it's so crazy because in both of those instances, um, after they figure out kind of who I was and what I do and what I play for, the conversation obviously takes a turn, and you know then there's one to talk about the Patriots and us at the time trying to win the Super Bowl. So I mean, there's obviously more and more situations where I dealt with it. Walking behind somebody, then walking into a mall, and literally a white lady, literally stops, look at me, lets me go before her, and then walks in right after me. So, I mean, there's a lot of instances, um, and I could go on and on, but those are just a few of just you know what you face when being an African American man in the United States.
Thanks for sharing that, Duron.
Sure.
Next,
good to see you, Duron, and yeah, thanks for sharing those stories. So appreciate that. I think you were one of the players that took a knee a couple years ago, 2017. What do you think demonstrations will look like this fall during the games on the field, and how much more do you think maybe the general public understands about why players took a knee now? Given the last few weeks.
Well, we still have a lot of time, to until we get to the season. And I can't really tell you, obviously, talking to different guys, we feel like there is still, obviously, some type of need for a silent protest. But to tell you what it is and what we're going to do, I can't really give you that answer yet. But what I do know is we're at the time, where that stuff really doesn't even matter yet. Obviously we can prepare, but what matters right now is, you know, trying to find ways to change and being in the moment right now, like trying to make sure we get justice for George Floyd, for Ahmaud, for Breonna Taylor. Like that's where the focus has to be right now. And that's where we're focusing, obviously, as an organization. How can we help the community? How can we, make sure we do our job to make sure police officers are held accountable, district attorney, like they are held accountable to, this social inequality that, we're dealing with as a society. So, obviously, that's going to be obviously a factor down the road. And when that time comes, it will come. But right now, we're just literally focused on, the problems at task right now.
Do you think white America or the general public, for that matter, maybe better understands what the causes are? I mean, from the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, I just think, for us to, as a society to really see what obviously the nil meant was for us to be, everybody just be home, like everybody at home, like witnessing what's going on. Like, you hear, you see the Ahmaud video, obviously, and we were, affected directly with that because our teammate Tracy Walker, that was his cousin, so that it hits a whole another, part of your body and part of your mind, because, we see that. And then I think, you see obviously the Breonna Taylor, then, the George Floyd, and like everybody is just witnessing it. And, more people are just realizing, like, if I'm not saying anything, like, I'm condoning it. So, and if, I'm not supporting it, then I'm condoning it, like, I love being in this country. Like, what I've been able to accomplish, what I've been able to do, what I've been able to provide for my family, like the opportunities, like, I'm forever grateful. I know I'm beyond blessed. My wife is Dominican. We went to visit her family, and it's completely different worlds. So I'm very, very appreciative. And, obviously I'm appreciative of the flag and the people who serve. But like you said, the narrative has to stay the same and focus on what is the problem. And the problem is police brutality, social, injustice, and just racism. And if we can just focus there and not try to put it on anything else, like, that's when the change will really, occur. And it's going to be, it's not going to be just a drastic change like right now. Like, it's going to be, a group of people coming together, doing it the right way, then they go out in the community, create change, and then touch other people's lives. So, I mean, it's just going to be a constant, how can I put it, a constant battle, a constant, fight, against racism, because it's tough. I mean, this it is what it is. This country is built on racism. 400 years ago, slaves were, African American slaves were brought here to build up the country, and, we're still, trying to get through that and fight through that. So it's going to be obviously a fight, but, it's something that I'm willing to fight for.
Thank you.
Michael Rothstein.
Yeah, hey, Duron.
Hey,
You were
Mike.
talking a little bit at the top about kind of talking to your son about everything
Mhm.
that's about George Floyd and Ahmaud.
Mhm.
How do you go about explaining everything to him? What is that conversation?
It's tough. I mean, it's tough. I mean, because you just think back to, when you were 8 years old, and, at 8 years old, you don't see color, like, and he couldn't grasp the idea of, why, a police officer, at that, because he has, in his school that he went to, they had, the police officers, and they come and visit, and, it's great. It's great conversations. I mean, it's great interactions, and, my son has, he calls a lot of my best friends who are police officers, he calls them uncles. So, from his mind, he thinks the police officer is supposed to protect and serve and make sure, the community is safe. So when I'm telling him, obviously this police officer is an ass, and he's not, the police officer that we need to be, protecting and serving. And he is one of the bad apples. I mean, it's still hard for him to comprehend, and it's hard for him to comprehend that somebody, will not like you because the color of his skin. So I just try to, instill in him the values that, love everybody no matter what. Unless, obviously they give you a reason to not, care for them. But in reality, like, we're a Christian family. We believe in God. We believe in, Jesus coming back, and uh being our savior. But I think the thing that I just try to encourage them, that love wins. No matter what. It talks about in the Bible all the time. You gotta love. Like, it talks about how, Jesus went and was with, sinners, and he loved them no matter what. And through the midst of it, you gotta love. Like, no matter what, right, wrong, or indifferent, you gotta love. And just trying to instill that in him, that no matter the skin color, like, people are people. Like, it's a human race. And we got to do better as a community to just push that out there. But to do that, we had to identify the issue and realize, some people get upset when you say that, but Black Lives Matter. And, some people go back and say, well, yes, all lives matter. But until we view Black lives the same as white lives, all lives matter, that means nothing.
Do you we're just talking about the conversation with son. Do you remember when you first had that conversation with when family members talked to you about this, like what that was like, how Wade as well?
Yeah, I think too, obviously situations were different then, and I would probably say it's crazy. I think the first time we really had, like the racism conversation was when I was 17. Like my mom and dad, and honestly, at that time, I think it might have been a little too late. I think we should have had it a little earlier, but because of the incidents of me being pulled out in the car, my mom, and my father, they told me like, look, you are a black man, right, wrong, or indifferent, you are feared. When people see you get upset, they think and they see the big black guy, who's angry. So like you need to do a better job of, controlling your emotions. You need to do a good job of when you're in a situation with the police to always be respectful, always show your hands, roll down your window. And that was I would say around 17. And because that was, for a 17-year-old kid to get pulled out of a car, and to feel that type of, uh, just somebody holding that type of power over you and knowing they can do it and get away with it. Because I mean, it's funny just to go back to that story. We end up sitting down with the police department at the time. Because they found out who I was. I was a football player for the town who was going to Rutgers at the time. So they reached out and we went and sat down and we watched the video. And it's so crazy because when watching the video, certain parts of the time the microphone went off. In certain parts of the time the camera went off. So like, it was at that moment I seen, like, my eyes open and I realized, I need to be careful.
All right, we have time for 3 more questions. We'll go Jen Hammond, Kyle, and then Michael Stetz.
Thank you. Sorry, we both did that, Eamon. Hi, Duron. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Your stories are really heartbreaking and encouraging equally. I would like to know if you have plans to march today on Belle Isle, or if you have taken part in any protests, peaceful protests thus far in the Detroit area. And then my second question after that is, how important do you feel it is to use your platform or profile as an NFL player to try to speak up for change on an ongoing basis? And do you do that in the Lions meetings as well?
So yeah, to answer your first question, I have not. And the reason, well, we're still in Massachusetts right now. We haven't moved to Michigan yet, but I have shown support, obviously, to the peaceful protests going on today in Detroit. Like I said, I haven't. My wife is literally at any moment now can give birth to our 4th child. So we're just being extra precautious about, obviously going out there and protest. It's obviously something that, is dear to me. And obviously I want to get out there. But there's other ways I'm going to continue to show my support, donating to organizations, speaking out on social media, and just continue to, when we get in, our Zoom meetings and having conversations with each other and just, speaking my mind on how, we can progress obviously as a team when fighting this issue, but, just how, you feel obviously as a black man in society. And your second question, it's very important. I think the older I get, obviously the more kids I get, you just, you start to realize what life is truly about. You understand, coming into the league, I just wanted to be the best football player that I could be. And I think now going into year 8, turning 30 sooner than later, you realize that there's so much more to life, so much more to being a part of this world than just being a football player. And, you know, to be around guys like, you know, for the last 7 years, Matthew Slater, Devin McCourty, you know, Jason McCourty the last 2 years, like guys I really look up to. I just noticed, you know, how much they care about other things besides football and how much change and, you know, how much impact they have on the world. And, you know, when you get older, you realize like that's what it's about. Like people are going like, yeah, they're going to say this about football, but, you know, being able to be a part of to change the education bill in Massachusetts and get, you know, $1 billion for unprivileged schools, like that's what it's about. Like that's what it's about. Like that's what's really going to change people. Me playing the game, yeah, it's going to give some people hope, but if I can, you know, be a part. I'm just trying to, you know, obviously, you know, let, you know, obviously younger players realize how big that platform is and how much we really can get to create change.
Kyle?
Yeah, Duron, I'm curious, what's your thoughts on how the NFL handled Kaepernick in 16 and the protests in 2017, and what would you like to see from the NFL as a body, as an organization, going forward here?
You know, obviously that whole situation with Cap is unfortunate. It's sad. Obviously, you know, could he have still been playing? Without a doubt, he was a talented quarterback. Didn't turn the ball over when we played him. I think the last we played him was 16, and I mean he was still a good quarterback. And it's unfortunate that he got blackballed the way he did. You know, people can say what they want to say, but at the end of the day, he got blackballed. We know that, but he took a risk. And, you know, some people say the risk backfired on him because he was never able to play the game. But, you know, with him speaking out what he spoke about, you know, during these times and still to this day, you know, it's not just something that he said, you know, I'm going to do for attention. Like, this is something that this guy is still fighting for this day. You know, one of the best leaders of our generation, you know, and he's fighting each and every day. So all you can do is kind of respect what he does. Obviously, you're sad because his career didn't go the way that it should have went, and that was not his fault at all. But I think people are realizing now, like we talked about earlier, like what he was truly standing for, because the world has stopped and people have to listen. They have to see it. Like, and it's no like turning the other eye. Like, see, like I said earlier, if you're turning the eye, you're condoning it. Like, and I think the NFL is trying to do a good job right now. You know, they're putting out statements, they're donating money, but as NFL and as Black NFL players, we have to continue to pressure the NFL to truly, you know, stay on course and to stay at this issue, because, you know, when eventually when stuff starts opening up, people are going to get busy again, and people are going to, you know, kind of want to, you know, get back into their own worlds because people are busy. I mean, it's a busy time, busy place, but as African American players, we have to make sure the NFL is always fighting this issue, having our back, because this is not an issue that, you know, a lot of people, a lot of African American, we're not going away from this. Like, we're going to make sure that it gets changed, and the only way we can do that is from, you know, our white brothers, our white sisters, you know, because we need them with us. You know, we're crying for help, and, you know, I feel like we're at a point where, you know, help is on the way. Help is definitely on the way, and the NFL is trying to make sure, you know, they supply that help as well, so that we can create, you know, real change in the world.
All right, we'll go last question from Michael Stetz.
Duron, thank you so much for doing this and sharing your stories, man. everything is heightened right now, and it's fresh in everyone's minds. Obviously what's going on with protests and the conversations, like you said, with the team and everything. What eventually, a lot of times what happens in this country is once a topic's not fresh in people's minds, it kind of goes away. So what steps do you think the team can take and the league can take so that these hard conversations and important conversations continue to happen and continue to affect change in a positive way for you?
I think they just have to, allocate time, and have it consistent. Like whether it's, a call each and every week, just dedicated like strictly on, social injustice, racism, police brutality, and just go with it from there, from the NFL into the teams. Like I said, Matty P has done a great job of just giving us the opportunity to talk each and every day about, what was going on. We spoke on obviously the Drew Brees situation. People spoke their mind, and African American players, told our other teammates why we were upset, like why what Drew Brees said, really hurt, why it was heartbreaking at the time, and it still is heartbreaking, like. So I just think we have to allocate the time, like we have to keep it there, we have to prioritize it because it is important, like football, football is a game. Football is a game. Like, it's a game that I'm appreciative for. I love it. But at the end of the day, it's a game. Like racism, like that's real. Like we're talking about lives now. We're talking about, we're talking about life and death. Like racism has called for people to be murdered in cold blood. Like Ahmaud was killed in broad daylight by a freaking shotgun by two people, two white men following him because they felt like they had power over him because they were white and one was an ex-cop. Like you're not even a police officer anymore. You don't even have that jurisdiction to do that and stop anybody. So we have to just allocate the time and prioritize it so that we're not having these incidences like back to back like this. Like this should be something so rare that it rarely happens, but it's too common right now. So we have to prioritize it, allocate the time, so that this is such a rarity that when it does happen, the whole world is like, wrong, like, and it ain't even no question.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for the time. We really
Thank you
appreciate
so much, Duron.
Thank you.
Thanks,
No,
Duron.
thank
We
you guys.
appreciate it.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Duron.
Duron, thanks for sharing your stories.
Yeah, you're incredible. Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Duron.